Broken ads are rarely the main problem. They're usually symptoms. They're symptoms of weak decision making, poor incentives, or ad ops teams that are constantly fighting rather than optimizing. And in this video, I'm going to show you the external signs, things that anyone can see that point to deeper yield and operational issues inside of a publisher. When I first go to a website or an app, I'm looking for signals about their business model. I'm looking for the quality of the advertisers that are showing up, and I'm looking for whether things are broken, because those are usually signs of deeper operational problems. And this isn't just for consultants like me. It's a useful tool for investors, for analysts, for anyone involved in an acquisition, because you can tell if a company is well run operationally and whether there potentially is upside from better advertising or yield management just by looking at the pages. In fact, it surprises me how often acquisitions are done without the potential buyer spending meaningful time on the site or app in a way that a real world user would. And so today I'm going to walk through those external signs, things that you can look at in a standard browser and what might indicate that there are problems. And again, this is not about naming and shaming. It's about looking for and looking at what you should be trying to find. So, as we go through these examples, I'm going to score each of the problems on 2 dimensions. The first is how easy is it to detect, how easy it is to notice the problem on the site or the app. And the second is the strength of the signal, how strongly what we're seeing suggests that there might be a problem with the operations or the yield management. Something can be very easy to spot, but may not be a big deal. Something else can be hard to catch, but very concerning if you do see it. And the key isn't just that you look at one signal, it's the pattern across all of the signals. So, first things first. Example 1 is ads not loading correctly. And I'm looking for things like whether the ads are breaking or whether they're not loading correctly into the frame, because this can be a huge red flag. And there are a number of different flavors of this. One is that the ads may not load and they may create a blank box or a gray space or a white space on the page. Maybe they load slowly and take 5 or 10 seconds to load. Or maybe they load, but they have complete gibberish inside the square. You don't see this very often, but I've seen examples where it's JavaScript code running inside an iframe, and the consumer would have no idea what to make of that. And so here I'm showing you an example of an ad that didn't load, and all you see is the white space. And you might ask yourself, James, how do you even know that is supposed to be an ad? Well, there is a clue, and the clue is that the ad choices icon loaded so that you could opt out of the targeting, but in this case, the rest of the ad didn't load. So when you see an example like this, it means that there is no person catching it, and there is no machine catching it. You would usually want to have processes in place to flag when you have no ads loading and when you have problems. This is an example of direct revenue leakage. You don't know if it was because there was a lack of demand or whether an advertiser actually bought this impression and the ad failed to render due to some technical problem. But even if the problem originates with the advertiser or with the agency, the job of a good ad ops team or a data quality team is to track this down quickly. One downside for looking for a signal like this on a publisher page is that you may need to spend significant time to find it. I'll actually show you examples later in this presentation of examples where I did not have to spend significant time. I caught it pretty quickly. So if we summarize this as a signal, how easy is it to detect? It can be quite hard. but what is the strength of the signal when you actually do see it? The strength of the signal is high. You know that there's going to be a problem. So the summary is that broken or non-rendering ads are one of the clearest signs of operational failure and direct revenue loss. All right, example 2. High value placements showing house ads or PSAs. So first we need a couple of definitions. A house ad is an ad promoting your own products. Think of LinkedIn running an ad for their own job services, or Yahoo running an ad for Yahoo Fantasy Football, or Google running an ad for Google Maps. A PSA is short for a public service announcement and is also known as a charity ad. Many publishers run these at low volumes, often on behalf of the ad council, to promote worthy causes. So in and of itself, it isn't necessarily a huge red flag. The occasional PSA or house ad is fine, but no publisher should be running more than a few percentage points of their impressions in this way, particularly in the highest value placements. It's usually a sign of it's happening that they don't have backfill in place for backfill ads or remnant ads, and that somehow they're just running sponsorship ads and they've run out of demand. So this is easy to spot, and it's usually a sign of trouble or revenue weakness, because there's really no excuse for running high volumes of house or PSA in this day and age. So how would we summarize this? The ease of detecting this is relatively easy. Spend some time on the page, and if you haven't seen one of these types of ads, hopefully there's no problem. The strength of the signal, relatively high. If you're seeing a lot of PSA in-house, it's usually a sign that there's a problem with the site. So, summary of this: frequent house or PSA ads and premium placements usually indicates poor yield management logic or unresolved demand problems. All right, example 3. The same creative appearing in multiple ad slots on a page. Another thing that I look at when I go to a web page is whether there are multiple ad slots showing the same creative at the same time. Often it will occur if the placements are right beside each other, maybe one above the other, and it's actually a tough problem to solve and requires more sophistication to manage. So I'll show an example here where it's the exact same creative, and as a diagnostic technique, it's relatively easy to force. What you do is you go to a page where it has 2 or more of the exact same ad on the page, and you just constantly hit refresh. And if you've done this 20 or 30 times and you haven't seen it, there's probably nothing going on. Why this occurs is often when a call goes out from a page, from the buyer perspective, they're seeing an opportunity to reach that user, and they're bidding at that user basically through multiple placements. It tends to occur more frequently than broken ads because ad calls often go out simultaneously to the same exchange. How easy is it to detect? I'm scoring it a medium on how hard it is to detect. The strength of signal, medium low. If you're seeing it all the time, it's usually a sign that the yield management team is not on top of their game. But it usually also means that at some stage they've taken some proactive efforts to put ad placements and they've thought about their page. So repetitive creative signals often can signal either a shallow demand pool or could reflect gaps in the optimization logic going on that page. So another thing when I'm actually looking at the ads is the diversity of advertisers. So this is example number 4. Are the same advertisers appearing again and again on the page? And here I'm not talking about a sponsorship takeover where one advertiser may have bought a page or a homepage for all of the day. I'm talking about if you go to other parts of the site, what do you see? And a healthy site should see dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of advertisers appearing, usually well targeted to the audience that's showing up. If you keep seeing the same brands or categories repeatedly, it can be a signal of shallow demand pull and over-reliance on the same group of buyers on that page. It usually signals a lack of diversity and tends to cap the prices or the CPMs that the publisher is going to get, even if the fill rates look fine. So, ease of detecting this, relatively easy. The strength of signal as to whether you have a problem or whether the publisher has a problem, this is medium strength signal. And the summary here is that low advertiser count usually points to constrained demand and quietly limits the revenue upside on the pages. All right, example number 5, aggressive ad refresh. After I've looked to see whether the ads have actually loaded, you would normally want to stay on the page and see whether the ads refresh. Are they auto-refreshing every 20, 30, 40 seconds? In the old days, an ad would stay on the page and it would not rotate or it would not change. Now it's much more common to have new ads appear. It can be a sign of revenue pressure, or it can be a sign of a public company maximizing short-term revenue. So the key is to try to work out as you're going through this pattern matching, is it a tactical response or part of a long-term strategy? Ease to detect this, pretty easy. You go on the page and you'll be able to see it very quickly. The strength of signal on this particular signal in isolation, I'm scoring low. And again, this is one you want to use in conjunction with other signals. So the summary here is that aggressive refresh alone isn't alarming, but it can reinforce other revenue stresses that you may be seeing on the pages. All right, example number 6, a sticky ad. And here what we're talking about is when you are scrolling through a page, through the content, are the same ad blocks staying on the page, moving with the user? And this isn't rocket science, but it shows that at some stage someone was paying attention to monetization. And the example that I'm showing on the page is from Yahoo. When you scroll through the content, you'll see ads over on the right-hand side. You can detect it relatively easily. And similar to the previous example, the strength of signal as to whether there's a problem here in isolation is relatively low. But it's one of those signals that you can use in conjunction with the other signals that I'm talking through to understand whether the publisher's under some pressures. And the other thing I'll say about sticky ads is it's very different based on the size of the screen. When I was taking the screenshot of Yahoo on a web page, I'm on a 34-inch monitor. I'm going to show some examples here in a little while of sticky ads on a phone screen, and they're extremely annoying and they don't go away, and to me that's a very different experience, and I'd look at those publishers in a very different way. Example 7, pop-up ads. In most high-quality sites these days don't have a lot of pop-up ads. They have a lot of the other things that I've talked through, because pop-ups tend to trade user trust and brand perception for short-term revenue. And so when you see them now, it usually signals that that company is under significant revenue pressure and that there is a weak alignment between sort of the monetization and the audience strategy. The ease to detect this, very easy. The strength of signal, low, but low going up to medium, because it usually indicates the pressures that I've been talking about. All right, example number 8. The overall ad quality on the page. And here I'm not talking about technically are the ads loading. I'm looking at what's actually happening inside the ads. Who are the brands? And what does the ad creative look like? Is there a lot of skin? Is it a dating ad? Is it penny stocks? Is it junk bonds? Is it dating sites? What are the ads that are actually running? And I'll show you some pretty bad ads here as an example in a little bit. Usually, If you've got very low quality advertisers running through your slots, it's a sign of revenue desperation, usually an underperforming sales team or weak controls around the demand quality. So good ad ops teams are very deliberate about what they allow and who they allow to monetize their audience, and don't just default to if it's revenue, we'll take it. As a signal, this one's easy to detect, and in terms of the strength of signal, it's medium. Again, the summary here is that poor ad quality usually reflects weak demand controls and internal misalignment around monetization policies. So I've given 8 examples, and if you look at this table, you will see that some are relatively easy to test and to perform, but the signal that they convey may be relatively weak. And the thing that, again, I want to impress on you is that while some of these may be weak in isolation, taken in aggregate across all these different signals, they can give you a really good understanding of what's going on at a publisher. Okay. Now let's look at some examples I found out in the wild with pretty minimal effort. Some of the techniques I talked about, you may need to spend a lot of time on a publisher's website. I went to a couple of sites and these really jumped out at me. And again, I'm not intending to shame any particular publisher, but these examples are pretty egregious. And if you go to the sites, you'll see what I'm talking about. So first is from Screen Rant. I was looking at a story on The Mighty Nine, a TV show, which I will have to say I really enjoy and I do recommend. And this first example is the primary ad is clearly for Tai Chi. It's really low quality. I mean, I think I'm not going to go into the details of why I think it is, but visually this is a poor ad. The second component of this being a less than optimal experience is that the second ad showing up on the same page is in Spanish. And to some extent, you can't blame the advertiser here because I'll acknowledge also that as a publisher, this is a hard thing to reconcile. So if I only showed you this screenshot, maybe I have some sympathy for the operations team here. However, the next example is more egregious. Here we see an example of where the primary ad hasn't loaded at all. We have a secondary ad loading in the bottom and a tertiary ad all on the real estate of a phone screen. And finally, I'm going to show a third experience, still on the same page, where one ad is covering up another. And on these types of examples, where I might have had some sympathy for the first one, where you have Spanish showing up in one ad and English in another, in these examples, I have very little sympathy because it's clearly a terrible ad experience. All right, now let's look at a very different type of experience, and this is a video from AOL. And here we see that there is a delay in the ad loading. And while we're waiting for the ad load, they have a gray box. And then the gray box goes away, and we see one ad loads, and we wait a few seconds, and then another ad loads. Again, this is a sign that the operations team just either isn't monitoring this or they don't care. And as I record this, I know for a fact that AOL has a lot going on at the corporate level. They are moving to a new parent, acquirer of AOL, and it's just one of those things where right now they probably aren't paying attention to all of the stuff going on the page. Let's talk about a different kind of experience. This is Forbes, and clearly this ad that I'm showing you is deliberate. It is a full screen takeover. I believe that the IAB guidelines for these types of ads, and especially for this type of size, is that there is a way for the user to minimize the ad. And I didn't see it. If there is, it wasn't clear to me. And to be clear, this isn't a sign of a bad operations team, but it is a sign of a website that's really squeezing every bit of juice out of its audience. I'll leave you to form your own judgments about the behavior, but I'd observe again that the ad experience tells us a lot about what's going on at the publisher. All right, so coming to the end of this video, everything that we discussed today can be observed using nothing more than a standard browser. Some of these signals are easy to spot and not necessarily a problem on their own. What matters is how many of them show up together. When you start to see multiple signals pointing in the same direction, you can form a pretty accurate picture of a publisher's ad operations and yield maturity, even for the outside. I'll potentially do a follow-up video that still stays with the browser, but goes deeper into the technical signs like privacy handling, identity, ads.txt, and header bidding. This was tended to be someone who didn't have any of those technical things that they wanted to get into, but hopefully you found the content useful. So if you are a publisher, investor, or acquirer, and you want a second set of eyes on your monetization strategy, feel free to reach out. I am James Deaker. I am the Yield Doctor.